Sometimes I want out and I want off. Hi, my name is Sydney, welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Fume. Also, just a quick note, my setup might look a little bit different from here because I had to make room for some new equipment for my gaming channel. This was not meant to be a shout out to that, but it is called Sydney Mashes Buttons, and if you are interested, I will link it in the description if you want to subscribe. There's no content yet, but I will make some content, I promise. But that being said, I haven't quite worked out what I'm doing visually yet because design is not a strong suit, so just, you know, for now, enjoy this corner of the desk in my shot. Yeah. Now, lots of bizarre things have been happening in the news, and I confess that there was a part of me that wanted to traumatize all of you with a discussion about Sam Smith's new music video, because what is this? But honestly, I don't have the emotional capacity for that, and I will not be distracted by a fat they them with nipple tassels. Instead, I wanted to once again talk about TikTok, because if you haven't noticed, I think it's pretty clear at this stage that the app is negatively impacting an entire generation of young people.
So I say all the time it's weird to be a trans girl that's a lesbian, and this is why.
I make no secret of the fact that I think that TikTok is quicksand for your brain. And I personally do not use TikTok because I don't feel safe among these kinds of people.
Heterosexual men should realize that trans women are the future.
People are really out here saying that trans Chuchi is the inferior product. I'm sorry. We have the designer, expensive, bougie coochie.
No. But as time wears on and the influence of the app grows, it's pretty clear that other social media platforms are tying themselves in knots just trying to keep up. We now have Reels and Shorts and all sorts of other short video sharing opportunities that absolutely nobody asked for, and in the majority of cases, people are uploading their TikToks anyway. So yeah, if you thought that you were getting away from literal children dancing for your entertainment, you were wrong. Welcome to modern society, the river on which my hell gondola sits. With this in mind, and in my recent travels of the internet, I happened upon an extremely interesting article titled, "TikTok May Be a Chinese Superweapon." The article attempted to answer some of the questions many of us have been asking. What is TikTok doing to young people? What is its effect on the brain? And why does China's TikTok ban the type of content we see here in the West? I don't think Sam Smith simulating drinking pee is making the rounds in China. Let me assure you, it's gonna be a no from me. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How TikTok, the app used by millions of young people, is causing brain decay and might be happening deliberately. I also just want to make note here that although some of this is speculation and might sound a little bit out of the box, I don't think that that changes its importance, and I do believe that this is incredibly interesting. I will also link the Superweapon article in the description box so that you can read it in your own time, because a lot of the things that are covered in that article I won't have time to get into in this video. But as always, before you once again board my hell gondola, and together we sail this river of society into the land of sadness, let's hear from today's sponsor, Fume. Be smart. Don't start. Put it out before it puts you out. These are phrases we've heard 1,000 times, and yet we still continue on with our terrible habits. And if you're someone who can't quite find the motivation to stop yours, then Fume might be the perfect solution. Fume is not a vape. It is this nifty little device that serves as an alternative to any hand-to-mouth habit. It is a no-vape, no-smoke, non-electronic inhaler that provides flavored and scented air to breathe in. Unlike a vape, which heats up potentially harmful chemicals for you to inhale, Fume uses cores infused with peppermint and cinnamon. There is no heating, no chemicals in your body, no vapor. Think of it as like the essential oil diffuser that you put in your room, except this one stops you from putting your hands in your mouth, because you're not a 3-year-old infant. This little contraption is nicely weighted, it has adjustable airflow, and a magnetic end cap so your fingers can stay occupado. So if you want to break a bad habit and not inhale terrible chemicals, then head over to tryfume.com and use code Sydney for 10% off when you buy a Journey Pack. Don't forget that the Journey Pack comes with 3 Yummo flavors and the new version 2 Fume. Terrific. In the early 1990s, the video game Mortal Kombat began appearing on shelves alongside Super Mario World. The game at the time was considered unashamedly violent. Players were encouraged to rip the head off fallen opponents, with the infamous words, "Finish him," flashing on screen when the fight was over. The game disturbed then Democratic Senators Joseph Lieberman and Herbert Kohl so much that they called a hearing on video game violence. This wasn't the first time video games had come under fire for being violent, and as we all well know, it certainly wouldn't be the last.
I know that one place parents want us to draw the line is with violence in video games.
They actually solved the violence problem in video games by just adding a bunch of pride flags. Yeah, I mean, it's bloody, but at least it celebrates all the demi-queer trans boys. And if you can't support that, 1 million years gulag. Media in one form or another has always come under scrutiny. Whether it be television, movies, video games, the internet brought with it a slew of additional concerns, and social media platforms have been criticized since the days of MSN Messenger and MySpace. A place where I was once known as Sydney Meth. That's not a joke. And now I'm going to age all of us with one simple sound. The kids will never understand. If we are to follow the trends from the last 60, 70 years, well, it makes sense that now TikTok finds itself under the same microscope. Why wouldn't it? Since its inception in 2017, it has become the most downloaded app the world over. By late 2021, TikTok.com was visited more times than Google, Facebook, or even YouTube. Year on year, time spent on the app has increased, with the average user spending at least an hour and a half a day scrolling. And around 60% of users on the app are Gen Z. While TikTok has been accused of plenty, mostly true things, it's now becoming clearer and clearer as time goes on that the app is more than absurd trends, 16-year-old influencers, and a place for the proliferation of mental illness. Although it kind of seems like YouTube is trying to give TikTok a run for its money. I still hate this. I did tell you guys I was gonna traumatize you with this. Here we are. Despite what TikTok appears to be on the surface, it is actually having a very negative impact on the literal brains of young people, and some believe that is deliberate. In an interview in early November 2022, Tristan Harris, an American technology ethicist, made a comparison between a Chinese TikTok, also known as Douyin, which I know I butchered, don't yell at me in the comments, and TikTok shipped out to the rest of the world. He explains that what Chinese children access is vastly different to what American children access. In China, if you're under 14 years of age, TikTok shows you science experiments you can do at home, museum exhibits, patriotism videos, and educational videos, which can only be accessed for 40 minutes per day. He says that this version of TikTok doesn't get shipped out to the rest of the world, and it's almost as if the CCP sees how technology is influencing kids' development and, in turn, makes their domestic version a spinach version and ships the opium version to the rest of the world. He goes on to mention a survey conducted with preteen children in both China and America, asking which career is the one they most covet. The number one answer for American children was influencer, whereas the number one for Chinese children was astronaut. To repeat Harris's own words, "You allow these two societies to play out for a few generations, I can tell you what your world is going to look like." Despite all of this, Western TikTok has said that it has features that allow parents to control screen time, as well as in-feed reminders to take a break from the app.
Hold on, you've been scrolling for way too long now. Maybe you should get some food, get some water, and then come back later.
Hey you, child, who cannot regulate your basic needs. Feed yourself. water yourself so you can come back and continue scrolling rather than going out and touching grass and digging holes in the yard like you should be doing. On a serious note, if your app is so addictive and you know it's so addictive that you have to literally add little tips and notes into people's feeds, reminding them to consume the nutrients that they literally require to continue living, we have a problem. This probably will come as a shock to none of you, but TikTok's algorithm, like I mentioned in previous videos, is extremely predatory. Where other platforms determine recommendations to make to you based on your followers, the topics you follow, your interests, and so on, TikTok's algorithm is analyzing what users like based on the videos they watch and the videos they skip from the moment they start scrolling. When it finds out what they like, it gives them more of the same. As the Superweapon article says, with TikTok, the recommendation algorithm is the core product. This means that TikTok is addictive. It zeroes in to maintain your attention. TikTok's For You page is down to the minute accurate, and after only a short period of time on the app, the algorithm has figured out your habits, your interests, and can present to you content to keep you using. And because TikTok's For You algorithm favors the most instantly mesmerizing content, videos that might actually be useful or meaningful are pushed to the side in favor of lip syncs and weird gender weirdo people.
I don't understand what is so hard about correcting other people when they misgender others. Like, it takes you like 2 seconds, but you know what it takes for me to have to constantly do that?
A single video like this on its own is not necessarily cause for concern. The issue arises when this content is viewed again and again ad nauseum. As well as we all know, societal issues that were once relatively obscure are suddenly more common and prominent, such as dissociative identity disorder or the growth of the trans and non-binary movement, leading plenty of people to believe that this is a matter of social contagion. Not too long ago, I even mentioned how TikTok is leading young people to adopt tics and ticking disorders after watching Tourette's content on the app. Because of course it is. While these artificially inflated TikTok communities are certainly cause for concern, I think we've seen enough of that, the addictiveness of TikTok is leading to some significant issues for young people. More specifically, digital dementia and something we now know and understand as TikTok brain. It literally has its own name. This is terrific.
On today's Mental Health and Me, we're taking a closer look at our phones, specifically TikTok.
Dr. Cheryl Ziegler joining us now. She is our 9 News mental health expert. We love talking to you on Mondays. Dr. Ziegler, let's break it down. What is TikTok brain?
The results aren't in yet, but for some parents, they're reporting their kids don't have the attention span to even sit through a movie anymore, let alone read. They say they're seeing the effects of TikTok in real time. For the Sargent family in Phoenix, Arizona, the battle over screen time has been an ongoing struggle with their 3 young kids since we first profiled them in 2018. Mom Carly says it's only intensified with the advent of TikTok.
The mindless scrolling is so hard on them, and then their ability to be engaged with people around, but they want to watch their phone and do that at the same time, which is so sad.
The term digital dementia was coined by neuroscientist Manfred Spitzer. What is always with these names? And is broadly understood as the use of digital technology that results in the breakdown of cognitive abilities. So like every single one of us today. Actually, a particularly disturbing research paper I found noted that excessive screen time is known to alter gray matter and white volumes in the brain, increase the risk of mental disorders, and impair acquisition of memories and learning, which are known risk factors for dementia. Chronic sensory overstimulation, i.e. excessive screen time, during brain development increases the risk of accelerated neurodegeneration in adulthood, i.e. amnesia, early onset dementia. Comforting. Beyond that, both TikTok brain and digital dementia can lead to anxiety, depression, the deterioration of memory, attention span, self-esteem, and impulse control. An article about TikTok brain by the Wall Street Journal notes that children generally have a harder time with prolonged focus and directed attention because these functions start in the prefrontal cortex, a part of the brain responsible for decision-making and impulse control. The prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until the age of 25. This actually explains a lot, like the behavior of the majority of men. I have brothers and have many male friends, and how the majority of you make it to adulthood, I'll never know. TikTok is perfect because it doesn't require users to give it any sort of sustained attention. If anything, it's even better than that because it rewards them for minimal effort. And it isn't just parents saying that their kids can't concentrate, people are admitting this themselves. Reddit has plenty of posts where people lament that TikTok has destroyed their ability to focus and concentrate on other things. Frickin' Reddit. So at this point you might be asking, so TikTok has destroyed people's ability to focus and it's produced very weird social contagion, but honestly, what has this got to do with China? At this juncture, I'm going to need you to sit down and be quiet and listen to me butcher a bunch of Chinese names. In 2012, a young internet entrepreneur called Zhang Yiming set up ByteDance, the company behind TikTok. By September 2016, TikTok launched in China under the name Douyin, which again, don't yell at me for mispronouncing because this is very challenging for me. In 2017, like I mentioned, TikTok was available internationally. According to the Superweapon article, Zhang originally intended for the content on Douyin and TikTok to be determined by popularity. Douyin started off as TikTok is now, dominated by fun content of teens singing and dancing. But by 2018, the CCP had taken issue with ByteDance's apps, saying they were platforming improper content. In response, Zhang publicly apologized, allegedly saying, "Our products took the wrong path, and content appeared that was incommensurate with socialist core values." A short time later, ByteDance announced it would hire 2,000 more people to review content, noting that Communist Party members and candidates with strong political sensitivity would be preferred. Since then, the CCP's influence not only over ByteDance but other major similar companies has only grown. In late 2021, an article by a known Mao supporter appeared in Chinese state media that effectively called for a profound transformation to make China strong enough to fight against the United States. The article calls for an end to US-style tititainment. That is a direct quote. I didn't come up with that word. Because if it does not stop, our young people will lose their strong and masculine vibes, and we will collapse like the Soviet Union. In response, the Asia Times reports that pop stars, including female actresses, were banned or fined. Male singers were accused of involvement in sex crimes. China also banned feminine-looking male celebrities and ordered that people under 18 were only allowed to play video games for 3 hours a week.
People found that Zhao was being erased on the Chinese internet. China is cracking down on the cultural world because the party is very much concerned about some of the influences over its younger generation.
China today continues to crack down on fandoms and what it calls idol worship because, according to the Cyberspace Administration of China, it harms the mental and physical health of young people. If we connect this to Tristan Harris's earlier point about what TikTok looks like in China, it's clear that the CCP is aware of what the online space can do to young people. With this in mind, it's understandable why some people have concluded that the way Chinese apps function abroad is deliberate, given what it does to the brain and how that will look long term. Well, we already have this, so how much worse can it get?
This is just a reminder that your tummy is so cute! So cute.
Don't answer that. An interesting point that is worth mentioning is that censorship still exists on both Chinese and Western TikTok, but the things being censored are totally different. Western TikTok moderators still censor videos that mention Tiananmen Square, Tibetan independence, and specific religious groups banned in China. Why these topics are censored is reasonably self-explanatory, given China's cover-up of these events and the CCP's feelings towards the free flow of information. But that isn't the only content being moderated and banned on Western TikTok. Content criticizing gender ideology, content expressing conservative values, or criticizing corrosive woke culture are also often axed from the platform. This is surprising given that the CCP would likely agree with some of the views being expressed. Which is honestly just so strange. If you actually think about it for a second, if you express concern about TikTok's content on TikTok, and those views just so happen to align with what the CCP is trying to do in China, you get banned. I mean, okay then. Content that China bans on its own platform is allowed to proliferate in the West. Hypersexualization, vapid dancing, lip syncs, idol worship, tittytainment, as it says, and gender ideology plagues TikTok. And to reiterate, content that calls it out gets banned. That said, it's also worth noting that TikTok itself has said that it's not under Beijing's thumb and has taken steps to make US lawmakers feel like private user information isn't being stored or accessed by Chinese government officials. Personally, I don't actually think that we'll ever really know how much influence and power the CCP has over Western TikTok, but I do still think it is an incredibly important part of this puzzle, one that we can't really get into today because we don't have the time, but once again, I will link some information in the description if you are interested. Overall, if TikTok is responsible for causing significant mental and cognitive decline, that is a problem. And if TikTok is also responsible for causing digital dementia and TikTok brain, that is also a problem. And if it has been unleashed in this form, in this way deliberately, then that needs to be investigated. Obviously, we can chalk some of this up to China's long existing censorship of information and the internet, especially when it comes to these apps and whatnot. But that doesn't change the fact that the government seems to be acutely aware of the effects of social media on developing minds, which makes it even more interesting and disconcerting when you consider the fact that TikTok is being exported to the rest of the world as one of the most addictive apps to exist to date, full of vacuous, vapid content. In the end, TikTok is not a harmless dance lip-syncing app for kids. Its damage is so gradual that your average person probably wouldn't even notice, but it is happening and it does matter. And whether the effects of TikTok brain and digital dementia are deliberate or not, something needs to be done about this. Now I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Is this totally a conspiracy theory? Can you see how it could actually be true that this is happening deliberately? What do you think about digital dementia? Does that freak you out? Are you somebody who uses TikTok or enjoys watching reels and shorts? Do you think that this sort of thing has affected you? Have you noticed a difference in your own cognitive abilities? What do you think of this in relation to children? Do you think this is right? Do you think this is wrong? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you like the video, hit subscribe and the thumbs up button. If you want to leave a comment for video, so just be respectful about it, and I will see you guys next time.